You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today we're going to dive into Reddit. Reddit has really popped up, I would say, maybe 10 to 20% of my conversations over the past few months here, and just have a lot of interest in it as a whole. I think a lot of it's driven by the LLMs, but to help fill us in on that, Jonny Waite's here from RECHO. They're an amazing Reddit agency, which is kind of interesting that we have Reddit agencies popping up now. But that's what we're going to dive in today. Jonny, though, I'll kick it over to you. You want to do like brief intro yourself, background,
Sure.
and even RECHO, like what you guys are doing?
Sure.
Reddit.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jonny Waite. I've been in digital about 17 years, pretty much all agency side. I've been at private and holding co agencies. By specialization, obviously a Reddit expert, but also an SEO expert. Built and run SEO programs, paid search, Amazon, omnichannel, from Fortune 100 down to well-funded startups in pretty much every vertical imaginable a few times over. Co-founded RECHO, and RECHO is quite literally, I think, one of three maybe full-service white hat SEO agencies in the US. Full service being we run both paid and organic. White hat being we do everything through REDS compliance. So everything is done the right way, not introducing more brand risk. We work with primarily mid-market to enterprise, and about two-thirds of our clients are D2C, a third are B2B. And we've been growing like wildfire, because as Aaron said, Reddit is very popular right now. But yeah, we have a great team of specialists. We use some agentic models to help us scale and do things through a commercial lens. But I think we have a pretty amazing service, and excited to get into Reddit today.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for jumping on, because I've got a bunch of questions. And I mean, I think you probably confirmed it. It's the LLMs, how I kind of understand where they're going to look for information. A lot of people are saying like it's retailer.com first and maybe brand.com second. And then after that is everything else. But at the top of the everything else, right, is Reddit. Yeah. And I was interesting. I was just talking to a brand the other day, and they're just now jumping into it. And what they're discovering is their brand is already being talked about all over the place. It actually reminds me of like Amazon way back in the day when brands are like, well, I don't know if I want to be on Amazon. And the e-com teams are like, too late. We're already there. There's all these other people listing their products and talking about it. And that's what they were finding was like, there's all these threads that are going on around their product, and they're not having any conversation with it. And the only business that was in there doing it and running ads was their biggest competitor. That's like, so it's surprisingly, but I mean, number one, I was just like, is that what you think too? Is it's these LLMs? And it's funny because you're in SEO, which now, whether it's GEO or AEO, however these things are used.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But it's plain, but it's the LLMs.
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I think it started with Google, the license agreement they signed 4.5 years ago, and then fast track to the advent of LLMs and adoption, and then the license agreement between Reddit and OpenAI in 2004. So I think a lot of the discoverability comes from there. Reddit as a platform in the last 3 years has grown 2.5x. That is not coming from homegrown Reddit growth. That is from Google. That is from LLMs. That's continuing to compound. Like I keep a close eye on Reddit's financial earnings reports every quarter, and they just keep beating that number. And now part of that's the investment in the ad platform, but a vast majority is that the parallel growth paths of Reddit and LLMs.
Yeah, it's just funny that it has to be the LLMs because it hasn't taken off until now.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like it's been there for a while, but it never popped up. I try to talk to 20 to 30 brands a week, and that is every vertical startup, the Fortune 500. Like I'm talking to the digital teams, and you even go back a year, people started to mention it a little bit, but they weren't like, wait a minute, this is a channel I have to be a part of.
Yeah.
Not only for reputational management, I think that's where I want to go next is like, from my mind, there's a couple things is, hey, I can do ads. But the other one is reputation management. Like, what should brands be thinking about when they're looking at Reddit? And maybe what are they missing out on? And maybe those two things are the same.
They can be. So I think the interesting thing, and this is from my experience, is brands either discover it organically or turn on social listening and start to dig into Reddit. A few things happen. One, they're surprised by how much their brand is mentioned in a negative or positive light. Or two, how much their competitors are mentioned, which is even worse. And then the question becomes like, I didn't know they were doing anything in Reddit. And the answer to that is they aren't necessarily, right? It's a homegrown, self-governed platform where people are having authentic conversations. So a competitor can have a massive share of voice on Reddit, and the competitor's not doing a thing, right? So you're kind of addressing, one of two things. Either a competitor is, early to market or first to market within Reddit, or way more commonly, people are just talking about that brand or the brand the brand that we're servicing, and they don't know what to do. So I think, Reddit's unique in the sense of there's things to gain and things to lose. So it's not like Facebook, TikTok, where, if you're not there, okay, you're losing some share of voice. Even Amazon to an extent. It's if you start to interact with it, you, if not done the right way, you can actually hurt your positioning. So I think there's like apprehension behind it as well, because now, it's just it's kind of a social platform. It's kind of a forum. It's kind of this weird amalgamation, but it's all, people are discovering all of this content, making buying decisions, building sentiment around brands because they're coming in from the LLMs and discovering it on their own. So where brands, I think, get it wrong is, okay, my audience isn't there. That's not true. In almost every single instance I look at, the audience is there, right? You're dealing with 500 million weekly active users at this point. So, and that number is growing.
Growing would be my guess.
Growing a lot. Like, and take this with a grain of salt because this is, sample reporting, but eMarketer released a report last year that Instagram and Reddit were the only two social channels where daily active usage was going up. And Instagram was like 0.3%, and I think Reddit was like 2.7%, but everything else was in decline. So, and the interesting thing about Reddit is that you don't have to be logged in to view all the content. So people are coming in from the LLMs. They're not becoming like Redditors. They're just discovering that, making a decision maybe, and then leaving. And then they'll come back again. Like the joke right now is you go on ChatGPT so that ChatGPT can go on Reddit and tell you what Reddit says. And that's that. But that is what's happening to a very, very, very large degree.
Yeah, I love the old adage. Like, I'm planning a vacation, right? And I'll get to the adage in a second. I'm planning a vacation. I'm talking to ChatGPT, and it's helping me get everything. And then it messes up the day and the date. I'm like, that's kind of like, how do you do that? So then I have this, little, like not a little, but a healthy amount of distrust, and I have to double check everything. But then it had me thinking like this old adage, like, oh, I read it on the internet, it must be true. Yeah. And people go, ha, ha, ha. And then they go to ChatGPT and they'll type it in, and whatever it gives them, they'll be like, oh, that must be the truth.
Yep.
That's funny. Yep. That's kind of funny. Yep. But on the Reddit front, then, like, are paid media dollars being diverted there? Like, what does that look like? Because people are trying to figure out, where do I spend the next dollar? And we've had like Megan Caroon from Claire Data on. She's got a company that is probably the best at that. They do the incrementality measurement, and so that's top of people's mind. I know there's TikTok, right? That's taking some Amazon paid media budget because so many, I don't know what they say, 3 out of 4 TikTok shop purchases actually end up on Amazon. Mm-hmm. So for every one that happens on TikTok shop, it's driving 3 to Amazon because people, like the trust. So I see ad dollars flowing there. Like, are people putting ad dollars into Reddit at scale now? And then the next thing would be, what do you do first if you're going to go tackle this?
Sure. Let me answer those in order. So it's slowly starting to happen with Reddit. So by growth percentage, the ad platform's growing exponentially. So I think, don't quote me exactly on these numbers, but these are directionally correct. From 2025 to 2026, 2025, it was the 0.52 or 0.56% of all media budget went to Reddit. That's now 1.75. Still not a huge, you're not talking TikTok, Meta, but it's, over triple growth in the course of a year, and that's starting to compound. So
I bet you it takes off. I
yeah,
bet there's no doubt in my mind.
Well, and Reddit as a company has invested heavily on the ad side. The management team's getting bigger. They're working on their ad platform. So, 3 months ago they released their Max campaigns so that they could be more conversion focused. So what I would say is a lot of brands are starting to test it. So we see one of four, but you have a test budget, now it goes to Reddit, because if you're researching and everybody knows that Reddit is having its day in the sun and probably will continue to, just because of the intrinsic nature of the platform and what user behavior is doing. So that's one. Two, it comes from Pinterest or Snapchat or X budget. So that's really what we're saying. We're not really seeing like Meta. It's not a replacement for Meta or Google or TikTok. But in some instances, like if you're a brand where Meta is just doing the same thing it did last year, but the auction's more expensive, so you're just spending more for the same result, they'll start to diversify that with.
Are you on my calls? Are you on my calls with brands?
Yeah. So that's kind of, people are hungry for a way to mix it up. And Reddit is a good platform because it tends to fall outside. It's not cannibalizing the conversion event from like Meta. It tends to be a standalone and append itself as like either, last click conversion or an assisted conversion next to a direct search or organic or something like that. Your second question, organic and paid you'll have the flywheel benefit of doing both from discoverability, but they are pretty divorced. Meaning like you don't have to run organic for paid to work. You don't have to run paid for organic to work. Paid is discoverability, eyeballs, conversions. Organic is community building. You're still getting referral traffic. But the benefit of Reddit organic is more long lasting, like how your brand builds and is portrayed and all the authority signals on the internet for a long period of time, inclusive of LLM visibility.
Then, so is step one is a brand, like where do they go to kind of get, the lay of the land, right? Of where am I showing up in Reddit? Are you using like is it an Asoma or a Profound, or is there like a tool that's helping you understand where a brand is at? Because it seems like, number one, I want to know if I'm being talked about, which you said is probably a yes. Is that like step one? Like, how do people understand that? And then like, what is step two? Like when you engage with a brand, then what does that look like?
Yeah. So 3 places to start, or one of 3 options you can choose. Social listening tools are great. Get an idea of mentions, competitor mentions, all that sort of thing. See what the volume is at the daily, weekly, monthly level. 2, you can use Profound, Prompt Watch, Peak AI, any of the LLM tracking tools. They're, in my opinion, all pretty similar to get an idea of what your AI footprint is, specifically sourced from Reddit, but you'll get the benefit of seeing it everywhere. And then third, honestly, unless you're doing, you're getting access to the API or something like that, a bit more granular, ChatGPT specifically is a very easy place to start. Just like, what would my target subreddits be? What is the audience size in each community? And I say ChatGPT specifically because OpenAI is the one with the licensing agreement. So like when, before we started this agency, I, reached out to my network of internal Reddit people, and some of which are the folks that actually built, were the ones that built this from 200 million to $500 million. And they're like, as a starting point, because ChatGPT has been training Reddit data for so long, well, long in the AI world, it'll give you a very good directional indicator of like, is there an audience here for me? And what does that look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then is it creating content? So then it flags, okay, this is where you're at. Then are you doing a deep dive on each one of those threads and then saying, hey, now I need to create content to respond and then create the ads to then put in there?
Depends on your goals. So generally speaking, it's good to stop and listen first just to see what you're up against, right? Are you dealing with negative sentiment, positive sentiment? Are you dealing with any sentiment? Are you just building from the ground up? What's the audience like for your vertical? What are the moderators like? Like you could have the perfect subreddit to be a part of, but the moderator is incredibly strict and doesn't want a brand in there, which is becoming less and less as time goes on. But there are a few instances of that. It's a self-governed platform. So I would say, it's really about understanding what problem you're solving, what the opportunity is. And then it becomes, okay, how do we engage with this? And you need to engage regularly. And I'll just give you a quick example. When brands jump into Reddit on their own, and it's not every brand, but I would say a vast majority, the ones that get it wrong and back off of Reddit and then eventually come back to us and say, we tried this and it blew up in our face, is because they jump in when the brand was mentioned and don't do anything else. It's a community. So I always say, like, what's a major red flag? Okay, your brand is mentioned. You've never engaged in Reddit before. And the only time you jump in is when the brand is mentioned. So they jump in and they're like, so sorry to hear that, da da da. And then the users are like, I've never seen you before. Like, this is the only time you want to contribute is when you're trying to save your own butt, excuse the language. But, that really is. And then they kind of kick them out. So if you go in there authentically and you start replying to people thoughtfully, you're not PRing, you're not hawking your product, that's how you start to build. Is you just go in, you have, most brands, or all brands, but most brands have a clear value prop. Why does the brand exist? Why does the product exist? That's what you're leaning in with. That's what you're contributing with. Like, we have years of research, or we have engineers, or whatever it is, and a reason that a product exists. We're going to lend up why we make this product, how we help people, or what we service, and then give that to the Reddit community.
Yeah. How long does it take? Would you say it's performance marketing channel yet? Sounds like maybe not quite yet. Maybe it is. How long does it take to build up steam? Because at the end of the day, is the bang worth the buck? I guess is the question.
Yeah. Yes and no. So on the ad side, for sure, right? You can measure it by ROAS. You can measure it by CPA. Dollar in, dollar out. Do a blended ROAS, because Reddit's going to do by default 7-day window and attribute a lot to itself that you just have to measure against your own analytics. But you can come up with a fairly accurate blended ROAS pretty easily. So I would say that on the ad side, definitely. And the effectiveness of that changes by setup, what you're investing, vertical, like any other ad platform. On the organic side is a little bit more nuanced. So it really depends on what your value KPIs are. So if you're looking at like just pure ROI, I put $1 in, do I get $3 back? It can do that, but it's more of a boom and bust cycle. So you need to build authority. You need to build a baseline, contextual relevance for the communities before you really start getting into different tactics that would drive revenue. And even with those, even if you have a ton of equity on the platform, you still can't just place a link back to your site to purchase anytime you want. You have to carefully do that. It has to contextually make sense. You have to wait for, cultural or viral moment where you've garnered 2 or 3 million impressions from one post, and then use like the comment section to drive meaningful, converting traffic back to your site. So it's not as if it can't be done. And I would say, as like an analog, I hope anybody listening doesn't hate me for this, but I come from the SEO world. I always tell people, as a comparison, yes, it's on the organic side, it is organic, but it's in a closed platform that's like supercharged for LLMs. So it's way faster than SEO as far as its effectiveness in driving that. But there are, different in SEO in the sense of like, you could do some damage if not done well. I guess that's true on SEO as well, but a little bit more so on the Reddit side.
Well, yeah, I just as we're having this conversation, it's hitting me that it's almost like a place. This will lead to the next question, which is where is a budget for something like a RECHO? For everybody, it's RECHO. What's the website, Jonny?
Recho.co.
RECHO, RECHO.co. It falls almost into PR sometimes in a way. This is, I think, this is something that, I mean, whether you have an agency or you're doing it internally on the Reddit standpoint, you have to start curating that community now. Because you're right. You can't just randomly jump in when something goes crazy and they're like, oh, I see they've got Sprinkler, they've got a social media listing tool, and it flagged, and we jumped in and we said, we're sorry, and we walked away. It's kind of like, are you really sorry? Like, what really? So it's building and curating, and it is then incredibly organic. But if you're authentic, then you're driving that back. You can drive them wherever you want, probably to your direct consumer site or to your brand or the store or wherever else.
Right.
So it's almost, so anyways, that's where the budget, like, is this coming from an advertising budget? Is this coming from a PR budget? Is this, wait, where are people funding this?
All the above. I will say that's the most interesting aspect of running this agency is sometimes we're talking to PR, sometimes we're talking to brand, sometimes we're talking to SEO, sometimes we're talking to performance marketing, and most recently, AI strategy or technology budgets. So I'd say the biggest thing that I see is that, like, there's starting to be more of a major investment, right? And it's starting to become more of important. And what I see is brands, say they are looking at this the right way of like, this isn't slowing down. Like every quarter, this is either going to get worse or we're going to be, our share of voice, kind of like Amazon. I used to work for on Amazon for a brand that sold Apple plugs. I won't say the name of the brand because it's been a while and I don't remember the terms, but they were, one of the biggest brands. If you weren't going to buy your charger from Apple, you would buy it from this brand. And then Amazon started to ramp up, and then you had homegrown competitors that started killing their share of voice on Amazon, and it became a major problem. Same thing's happening on Reddit. This brand has a lot of visibility, a lot of traffic, a lot of and then there's the brand aspects, PR aspects of authority building and what that means long term. So, I would say budget is coming from everywhere, and it really depends on like what types of conversations have had internally. Like who's focused on this? Why is it important to them? If it's reputation, we're generally working with the brand or PR team. If it's ROI or qualified traffic building, things like that, tends to be marketing. If it's AI visibility, could be marketing, could be SEO, could be AI strategy. It really depends what the focus is. But yeah, it could be all those places.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a brand of size, right? Like if it's any brand, you have to be there now. Like I think there's a lot of buzz, right? We do a lot around Rufus or Sparky, right? A lot of content around that right now. How are you building the detail pages or, your direct-to-consumer website? How are you, doing all the data and the tagging and everything on the back end and the metadata to make sure that it's showing up for the LLMs?
Right.
Well, this is number 3. And I'm guilty of the Google AI answer engine. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
I absolutely love it. Even though you're saying it, right? Going to Reddit, it's just pulling information, but I don't have to go to Reddit and go through it all. And it just gives me an answer back. And I pause and I think about it. Is it good? And sometimes I'll click the links and just go double check and make sure. But it's number 3.
Yeah.
There's 3 things to focus on. And if you have a budget or you're concerned about brand reputation, like there's so many.
Yeah.
I'm just really quick, I'm just voicing out loud. Like now it makes sense why it's starting to come up in so many of my conversations where I'm like, hey, what is the biggest pain point? What are you curious about? What are you trying to solve for? And people are like, Reddit.
Yeah. And even if it's not Reddit first, what's everybody and their mother talking about right now is how do we future proof for AI visibility? How do we get there? And, it's my opinion, said the same way. There's three like major things you need to do, but it's a lot more convoluted than just the days of just doing SEO on your .com or even SEO on your Amazon store. And Reddit is just crosses one of the three major things off the list. So, I'm proud to say that our agency, while it doesn't solve all three problems, it solves one of them. And I think at least you start to cross those things off your list as a brand. Okay, now you're probably insulated for what the next 2 years is going to look like, right? You get your PR running, you get your SEO right, maybe start to build out your YouTube, things like that. But I would say if you're doing Reddit well, you're ahead of a vast amount of the competition. And that's we work with one of the largest enterprise brands in the world. They kind of don't know what they're doing, right? It's not
nobody knows.
Nobody knows. So that's, and that's a lot of our work is to demystify the platform, right? Like,
this
is what you need to do to build, and you need to keep at it.
It's going to be really cool if we hear about it, or, you have like the Amazon native brands, and you have a D2C native brand, if you have a Reddit native brand. But you did also just give me the title for this, and I'll probably do a series on it. You just said future proofing for AI visibility. And yes, I mean, they're training all the time, the LLMs. And when it goes back in and they're training it, and it's, they do the next data dump and they ingest more data. Now is actually the time to get a Reddit strategy, get it rolled out and get it in place, because you're going to train this. And if you get 6 months ahead of training against your competitor, or a year.
I think what's going to happen is same thing with Amazon and a lot of these emerging platforms is you look back and you're like, what happened? Like, how did they get so far ahead of us? And in my opinion, it's the difference of months.
Yeah. Well, it used to be you had years like Google keyword stuffing way back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And then Amazon kind of shortened that time frame a little bit to a couple years, and then now it's shortened. I agree. It's 6 months. I mean, now is awesome. Well, this is too cool. I know everybody, if you're listening, you want to learn more. Jonny, Jonny, Waite, Waite at RECHO, RECHO.co. Ping him on LinkedIn. He's a great friend, partner, supporter of the network, and just they're doing great things. And so you're curious to learn more about Reddit agencies, I encourage you to reach out. With that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Thanks, everybody, for listening in. Thanks, Jonny.
Thank you.